spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
Or if that resume was from someone who
worked 12-hour shifts at the recycling company with my dad, who's 72. That taught me a work ethic that I carry with me every day.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone.
Growing up where I did, a lot of things could have gotten in the way of my goals. But I learned to push through, and that's what I bring to work every day.
So maybe it's time we look beyond the resume and look to Grads of Life. Discover new ways to develop great talent that are so much more than what's on paper at gradsoflife.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Tony Dufresne, author of Surrounded by Idiots. Tony, let me ask you, why is it difficult, or is it maybe that difficult, to find our true self and our gifts? Is that so hard, or are we just looking in the wrong places, or do we just want the things that are glamorous and kind of cool in the eyes of the world?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, thank you. We'll go to the next question.
It's yes to all of that stuff. Not to digress real quick, Bill, but that Grads of Life thing is a brilliant concept. I absolutely love that thing being out there. I just want to add that in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant, and I hope that comes on more and more. Anyway, the true self, and the reason why it's so difficult is the thing that I had mentioned earlier. It's about the ego. If you look at it like the ego's on one shoulder, is that, the angel and the devil, one shoulder,
sure,
one on the other. If you look at the ego as the devil and the true self as the angel, that's kind of the battle that happens in the mind, because you want to do stuff and you want to try new journeys and new experiences, but then you've got that little devil on your shoulder saying, oh, wait a minute, you don't have enough money. Oh, wait a minute, that's not responsible. Oh, wait a minute, that's you can blow that off because it doesn't matter. All those little things that come into play because we were programmed, again, to protect ourselves. So basically we are our worst enemy, and we're the ones who are keeping ourselves down. Because if you look at it from the true essence of who we are, how we were born, that whole and complete, nobody's broken, nobody needs to be fixed. You are who you are, and the point is that you need to get clear on stuff, which is fine. And that's what a program like mine is about, or a lot of other really good programs out there, is to become clear and get through all that mumbo jumbo that the ego throws at you to confuse you, and to get clear on really what you want, and then how you can serve. Because that's what really it comes down to. It comes down to your purpose being finding that true gift that you have, finding something that inspires you from within, finding a way to share that as a gift with the world. Because, Bill, it doesn't matter if you have a great gift and you're sitting there in your own little laboratory in some basement somewhere and creating really cool stuff and enjoying it yourself. It's all about doing something for at least one other person out in the world. That's what matters, and that's why the true self is really it's not impossible, obviously, but it is. There's a lot of there's a lot of machete through that that pathway through that ego to get to the point where you can recognize when that stuff comes up, to put it aside and to continue your focus on expanding.
Now, why does the ego get in there? I know you mentioned that in the book, and you say it's trying to protect us, but is it really protecting us if it says go to medical school even if you want to be a teacher, or go back to law school even though you find accounting more interesting?
Yeah, and again, that ego thing, that's the other side of the ego, and the other side of the ego is I called it's externalized stimulation. It's you're living an externalized self, which means it's more important for your image to other people. That's what you're living for versus living for yourself. You're living for your inner world and your true self and what's important. You think it's more important to have that image, or to be that rich, or to be the richest person, or to be the doctor. That's more important to you. Well, the problem is that's totally disingenuous to who you are, or could be. And when that happens, that's when things happen. That's when, if you look at a lot of midlife, and I'm using air quotes, midlife crisis stuff that comes up, because people think that they should do this. They think that they have that they need to go through and get some, finance degree and do this and that, where their true passion was in something else. And they end up being 40 or 50 years old down the road and going, man, I've got the house, I've got the car, I've got the 3.2 kids and a great wife and stuff. And I'm sitting around looking around going, yeah, something's missing. This is just not fulfilling to me. We've got our happy times and our vacations and stuff, but when push comes to shove, man, there's got to be something more than this. And it's the old Nicholson line from the movie. Is this as good as it gets? So, and that's what happens so that's that whole issue in regards to, waking up and finally, figuring out you didn't follow your true inner self, your voice.
And that's what your book is about. That's what's telling us. And Tony, again, I'd like our audience to know our guest today is Tony Dufresne, Dufresne, and he's got a PhD after that, so he's a smart guy. And he's written a book called Surrounded by Idiots. And Tony, would you tell us a little more about it, where we can get the book, and the website where we can get more information?
Yeah, you can get the book. It's actually Surrounded by Idiots. Drop the distractions, embrace your purpose, and get yourself in gear. Don't know where you want to go with that, Bill, but that's that's on the front cover. You can find it on Amazon.com. It's right there. As a matter of fact, Amazon is actually offering, or I put my book in to be offered as one of the. It's free with an Audible, an Audible trial, and there's also like an Amazon library that they offer free copies of books that you can get. So, and I actually put that in for there, so you can find that. Hopefully, that's great. If not, I priced it to sell anyway, so because I don't want to price it crazy for people to think it's some super crazy expensive thing for a reason. I want people to read it and enjoy it. So you can find it on Amazon, or you can go to my website javabud.com, and right there when you click on the website, there's an option to purchase the book right there.
So you've given us everything here, and JavaBud is JAVABUD, right?
Correct.
Okay. And once again, we'll give that right before the end of the show if someone didn't get it down. And as Tony said before, if you're looking to be successful, if you want to move ahead in life, if you want something to change, you have to take action. That's one of those 3.5 steps, being the third step, but perhaps the most important. Take some action, get hold of this book, go to the website, read a little more about it, and make it part of your life. The more you start doing this, it's going to lead us right into the next question and the next quote. Tony, I think it's on page 44 in your book. You start off chapter 3 with, and I love this quote, "It's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the best, you often get it." Can you talk about that?
Yeah, if you refuse to accept anything but basically you're setting your own reality is what it comes down to. Because if you look at it from any perspective, if you take 10 people, put 10 people in a room and show them a little cartoon clip, and then bring them out of the room and then ask them what they saw. You'll have 10 different angles to that. You'll have 10 different responses, which basically means everybody has their own perceptions of reality. Now, the problem is that a lot of times perceptions are clouded by the ego or by past experiences. So if you had a traumatic past experience that something was really super risky, or you got injured, roller skating or something, and you see something that has to do with that in terms of like expanding, if you learn how to do that, then that would really keep you from doing that. So basically you are defining your own world boundaries. And here's where it gets interesting, because it's the people who buy books like this or go to programs are the ones that they've lived that box. They've lived in that small box that they made for themselves. But it's like the Truman Show. Remember at the end of the Truman Show, when I hope I'm not, spoiler alert, but it's been out for 20 years. But when he's sailing and he hits his head on the wall there, when he finally realizes his whole life has been just one big TV show, that's what they finally have realized, that this is a wall that they don't want it to be there. And then now they're starting to pick up books and to read and start getting interested in finding how to get through that wall, how to get through all of those limitations that they put on themselves. And that's what it comes down to in terms of if you refuse to accept anything but the best. If you choose to take down those walls and say, I'm just going to go I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to take for what comes to me. If I fall down, I'm going to get myself up. I'm going to brush myself off. I'm going to continue forward in researching and improvising and experimenting. And because you know what? I don't necessarily know exactly where the trail is going to end, but I know that I'm going to continue to work hard to make my life better and better every single day.
And when we see someone, we don't know about their failures. I mean, they may have been let go from 10 jobs. They may have done a lousy job at another 5 jobs. But we see them as the job they're in, whether that's a waiter or an accountant or a doctor, a physician, teacher, whatever. And maybe now they've found that alignment and that right place in life. And I think that quote, I always like to evaluate a book before we have someone on, and I look through a lot of books. And that quote stood out because how many people really did, refuse to accept something less. And by doing that, they got themselves ahead, whether it's just to get on this show or to get on many shows, to write a book, or to be a success in life. Tony, let's wrap up and tell us, why do we stand in our own way and give ourselves? We actually are our own worst enemy. Can you tell us in 30 seconds why?
Oh, yeah, that's just the ego.
Okay, that was easy.
You can see the narrative of the book, it's about the ego. We do it because we were brought up a certain way. We fight those things. We have fears. It's all about fear, Bill, and it's all about those things come up, and we keep ourselves constrained in those things. And the biggest possible thing you can do to get out of that is to find a way to ground yourself and realize a lot of the stuff you're scared of doesn't exist. And you start to take measurable, tangible, actionable steps. Small ones, very, very small. Make them very, very baby steppy stuff, but get used to making changes. That's all. It could be changing the toilet paper roll from, in the inward roll to the outward roll. I don't care what you do. Start making small intermittent changes to show you can do it, and you can progress forward through that.
And I love that idea about taking action. Once again, before we wrap up, I want our audience to know the book is Surrounded by Idiots by our guest Tony Dufresne, Dufresne. Tony, the website real quick.
JavaBud.com, JAVABUD.com.
Easy enough to remember. Tony, thanks so much. A fun book and a lot of good lessons in it. Thanks for being our guest this evening.
Thank you, Bill. It was a pleasure.
We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.